Hello, this is Iron. I'm going to be doing a quick commentary over my Pocket Gaiden 2 PB. As you can, well, it doesn't say actually here, but this run is done in just under 48 minutes, which beat the previous record by almost 2 minutes. Um, and this is a ROM hack that's based off of Pokemon Emerald. Obviously, there's pretty much just in terms of mechanics, the region is completely different. The region is called Ryota, and it's a very small game, short game, as you can tell by the length. But the run was initially an hour and a half long or so when we ran with a different poke. But a recent discovery found a new main that can complete the game quite a bit faster. So I'm going to go through the run and explain the strats and whatnot. There's a lot to go through. Hopefully, I remember and get everything. But yeah, we'll just get started here. This run, actually, I kind of need to fast forward a tiny bit because this was a end of a previous failed run. So yeah, this is a good place to start here. So yeah, we'll get started. So first thing I'm going to do is set all my options, the typical fast offset, and I'd like to choose a specific frame. It doesn't matter for the run, but it's just something I like to do. And so we're playing as a swimmer called Clad, and we cannot change our name, so we're stuck with the name Clad. It's not too big of a deal, but and his main Pokemon to start off is a Whalmer. So that ball up there is a Whalmer. We're going to be picking that up. Initially, we used to manipulate the Whalmer to have specific stats, although that doesn't really matter for the new route of the game, which does a main switch. And so we don't give it a nickname either, because Whalmer only features in a couple fights. It's not worth it to give it a nickname at this point. And we're about to go on a quest with our friends, and we see this vision of this little boy who is asking for help. So we're about to go figure out what's going on with that and find out why he needs help. First thing we're going to do is talk to our buddy here, Malimo. There's a lot of text mashing in this game. As you can tell, we'll be able to tell from this cutscene. I haven't quite quantified how much mashing there is, but there is a lot. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go through this mashing sequence. We're going to meet our other buddy, Fern. And we have another friend called Ryan. We're going to go find him later. But so yeah, the first thing we're going to do here is go shopping. So this is the department store. And we got quite a few things that we need to buy here as well. So pretty much all this is just good execution in terms of mashing, but it's not too difficult. Okay, so there's a few things I'm going to buy. From this cashier, I'm going to buy 3 Great Balls. I could instead buy 9 Pokeballs because it costs the same amount, but I opt to buy the 3 Great Balls here. I'm also going to buy 7 Super Potions and 3 Repels. Now, I could also buy a Burn Heal because there is a situation come up where I could get burned, but since this is a PB attempt, if I got burned, it would take a lot of time to heal it off. So I would just reset the run anyway, but here I opt to just not buy the Burn Heal, buy more potions and more Great Balls instead. I also buy TM17, which if you could tell is Protect, and you might think Protect is kind of an odd move to use in a speedrun, but it actually is extremely important for this run. You cannot get through one specific fight without Protect using the main that we're going to be using a little bit later on. We do save a little bit of money as well. That's just so that we have a little bit more money later on to buy more potions, because we didn't buy any potions here other than the 7 super potions. Also, one thing to point out is the manipulation that we're going to be doing for our new main requires relatively strict step count. So I'm taking a very specific path. Try not to take too many steps because the manipulation won't work. So I'm going to go through that here. I'm going to use Repel. That girl there is a walker. She can hit you if you don't pause properly. That runner can also see if you don't step properly, but that's quite okay. So I picked up the Ether there. That Ether is very useful for later. And go into our first fight. So this fight here, obviously we have random stats with our Whalmer, so I don't actually know what my stats are, and this fight can go pretty poorly. Not even if your stats are good, it can go pretty bad. So this Skorupi very often outspeeds. It has Acupressure, which raises one of its random stats 2 stages, so effectively doubling it. And so we want to knock it out. Whirlpool is a really good move in that it deals not so great amount of damage, but it deals a decent amount of damage every turn thereafter, which means that overall, using Whirlpool, you can get through fights a little bit quicker. We use that to our advantage there on Skorupi. Luckily, the Skorupi didn't do too much to us. It has Pin Missile, which is a up to 5 turn or 5 hit move, which can deal a lot of damage. So didn't get that, which is really good. Again, very accurate step count. I did have to YOLO a little bit of grass right before entering this town here to meet our next buddy called Ryan. And we have to grab him and move on to the next area. And so here we are meeting up with our friends once again, and we get to move on to the next fight, which is pretty difficult to get through. So we're going to go do that very shortly here. Again, very specific step count through this area. And we're entering into this other area called Rokuroha Valley. There are a lot of trainers here, but you don't have to fight them. They're all optional. And in the old version of the run, we actually, with the old main, we actually had to fight a lot of them to get a specific amount of experience. But for this new main, we don't have the new main yet, so it's not a big deal, but we do need to, we don't want to go as fast as possible, so we don't want to fight any of those extra trainers. This fight here is really, really bad. So this guy has 3 Roggenrollas, and these Roggenrollas all have Sand Attack, which obviously lowers accuracy. Whirlpool is not a very accurate move to begin with. Here, Whalmer at level 16 can learn Astonish. I believe learning Astonish is beneficial if you have very high attack, but this case, I opted not to teach it. As you can see, Sand Attack caused me to miss. This Roggenrola is a little bit higher level, and it has Headbutt. Also, all 3 of these Roggenrolas have Rock Blast, which is a up to 5 hit move, which can deal a lot of damage. And this fight very often is a very large reset point. So very often in more race or marathon type settings, I would save for this fight. As you can tell, I got a lot of experience from that second Roggenrola. And there's a weird mechanic in this hack in which you get more experience if you are lower level than the opponent. You actually get twice as much. So I'm actually going to use that to my advantage during the speed run by fighting fewer trainers, getting more experience from those fewer trainers, and it overall ends up, I end up with the same amount of experience as if I fought more trainers, but I obviously fighting less opponents means the run goes a lot quicker. That fight went relatively well. I did miss a few moves, but overall went pretty well. All right, so I'm going to be healing to full and entering this cave, and here's where I'm going to be doing my manipulation. So if my step counter is correct, when I save the game, reload the game, and enter the game through the continue, at a very specific frame, I'll be using Flow Timer to do this, and take a specific movement pattern, I will get an encounter. Assuming I hit the correct frame, I will get the same encounter every time. So this encounter requires you to actually run around a little bit, and depending on where I get the encounter, I know whether I have the encounter that I'm looking for, and as it turns out, on this specific tile, I will get this Pokemon, which is a Dredigan. If I got an encounter on any other tile, it would not be the Dredigan, and I would just reset the Manip, or eventually I would, after maybe 2 attempts, I would just reset altogether, because it takes too long to do the manipulation. So this Dredigan is a beast. As you can tell, it's doing a lot of damage right away, and I actually used Growl turn 1 in order to lower its attack. This Dredigan has Hone Claws, so it can raise its attack as well. As you can see, Bite, it does a lot of damage. I haven't quite worked out a YOLO Ball manipulation to actually catch it at full health, because this Dredigan has a really poor catch rate. It's about 20% to get into a Great Ball at full health. Probably even less, come to think of it. And so what the goal here is to weaken it down a little bit and then throw Great Balls at it. I could throw 9 Pokeballs, which statistically is more likely to get in after 9 balls versus 2 Great Balls. However, the Dredigan deals a lot of damage, and so statistically, it's more likely to just kill you before you get through the 9 balls. So I opt to go for the 3 Great Balls here. I actually had to heal in this fight as well, which ended up being a little bit dicey in terms of the amount of potions that I had, but it ended up working out well in the end. When I weaken the Dredigan, its catch rate improves only about twofold, so I'm not really going to be getting too much of a benefit here, but it is worthwhile to do that. I do end up getting the Druddigan third ball there, which is really good. It's a little bit slow. As you can see, I'm losing a tiny bit of time here due to the slower catch, but it ended up working out well. Give the Druddigan a one-letter name because we're going to be using it a lot more often than the Whalmer, and switch it to the top. And because I weakened it, I'm going to have to heal it up a little bit because there's a fight coming up which can deal a lot of damage. So we're going to opt to heal. I'm going to use the Repel here as well, and this is so that I can go and pick up this Dragon Fang that's here. This Dragon Fang boosts Dragon-type moves by 20%, and it'll be useful later on. I'm not going to be using it just yet. And the Repel actually doesn't repel all the encounters in this cave. It only repels up to level 16. There are level 17 encounters. Obviously, the Druddigan we ran into is also level 17, so there is a chance to get an encounter even with a Repel up here. So in this, this Druddigan, in terms of stats, it has a serious nature, which is neutral, and it has pretty good IVs. Although its attack only has an IV of 4, which IVs go from 0 to 31, so it's kind of got low attack. However, it's got the right ability. It has the ability called Sheer Force, which means any move that has a secondary effect, such as flinching, lowering defense, etc., will do 30% more damage. So Bite actually is about an 80 power move versus 60, which it would normally be. This Druddigan has perfect speed, has 31 speed, it has pretty good HP, and it has almost perfect defense as well. So it's pretty solid all around. Special attack doesn't matter. Special defense is solid as well. However, the reason why this Druddigan is so good is because it gets Hone Claws, and that Hone Claws is a move that boosts its attack and its accuracy. Accuracy doesn't matter because there's no inaccurate moves I'm going to be using here. But the attack boosts are really useful because there's no X items in this run, which can be used to boost stats in battle. So Hone Claws is a very, very useful alternative. It uses up a move slot, but Druddigan generally doesn't need more moves than 3 on top of Hone Claws, so it ends up working out well. That fight we just fought there is a perfect example of getting more experience at a lower level. So both of those Pokemon in that battle ended up being a higher level than me. So I ended up getting twice as much experience from them. And finishing off that fight, I get Dragon Rage, which is a move that does a flat 40 damage. And it actually is going to be used in only one fight, and it's probably the trickiest fight of the run. And that'll be coming up soon. You might have also seen there that I used Bite turn 2 on the Tyrogue, because even though it was not very effective, and that was because the Vigoroth, which is the second Pokemon, has Encore. And if he Encores you and you've used Scratch as your last move, it takes longer to kill the Vigoroth. So going for Bite there is just a better strategy. Okay, this fight here is the fight that where the Burn Heal is potentially useful. And that's because the lead Pokemon in this fight has 2 moves which can burn you. It also has a move that can flinch, and it is just faster overall. So it's not a very good fight. If I get burned here, it's a reset. The run's dead because I don't have a burn heal, and it's just slow to heal off the burn in any case. This fight also, I am lower level than both of the opponent Pokemon, so I do get a lot of experience from this fight. So for this Ponyta, I have to use 1 Hone Claws and use Bite twice, so it's going to get at least 3 hits on me. As you can tell, it flinched me turn 1, so it got an extra hit. And this game actually, even though it's a Gen 3 Emerald hack, it has Gen 6 mechanics, or Gen 7 mechanics, which means that critical hits do 50% more damage, not twice as much damage. So a critical hit on that Ponyta would not have been useful because it would have only done 75% or so of its health. However, Bite on Chansey here does about 2/3 of its health, which means a critical actually knocks it out in 1 hit. And as you can tell, I got a lot of experience from that Chansey. It gave me 4,000 experience, so I get a lot of levels on this fight. Here I learned Slash. Slash is just a good sort of minor move that we get for specific situations where our better moves are not as useful. So this is useful for fairy types, as well as just finishing off fights which have there's only a tick of health left to remove on the opponent Pokemon. So Slash is just a good move to clean up because it has a lot of experience. Or has a lot of PP, rather. That Chansey has Minimize, which obviously raises its evasiveness, which means that my moves are less likely to hit it, but luckily I hit through there on Bite, so that's good. A quick Repel, and there's a spinner there, which I used the bag manipulation to do. And so there I got through him, and then I also pick up a Lucky Egg. So in addition to getting more experience being a lower level, I also get more experience, 50% more experience from holding the Lucky Egg here, which is very, very useful, because that means this Floette will give me quite a bit more experience now than it would if I did not have the Lucky Egg equipped. So I equip that egg right away. This is a fight where Slash is really helpful, because Slash is the only move that actually deals a decent amount of damage to this Floette, because this Floette is a fairy type. And a crit on this fight is very helpful as well, because the Floette is almost always a 3-hit. However, it has Lucky Chant, which removes the likelihood of getting a critical. There's no way to get a critical once Lucky Chant is active. But it only has grass moves, so it doesn't do a lot of damage to Dredigan, so it's a pretty safe fight. There you see I pick up a Star Piece. Star Piece is good. It sells for a decent amount of money. And so it's good for selling later to get some more items when we go shopping. There's another spinner. I didn't really pass him very well. There's a way to pass him a little bit faster than that. But if you run in one direction, he'll turn in a specific direction, and then you can quickly walk back in the opposite direction and pass him quite efficiently that way. So that's one way to pass him. So here we're in the next town, Oro Town, and this fight is quite irritating to deal with. It's going to be a true double fight, so we're going to be fighting alongside one of our buddies here. And depending on what your ally does and what the opponent does, this fight has a lot of different outcomes. This fight also, I go in this situation with no potions, which is very, very scary. Because the opponent is pretty much equally likely to target you or target your ally. So if I get hit a lot, it's going to be pretty much a done deal in terms of my run. So really don't want to see too much damage here from the opponents. I'm also a very specific level, such that I'm going to be fighting the opponent, knocking out the opponent Pokemon in a specific order. So as you can tell, this Sandile is level 25. If I knock out the Ghoul Bat first, I will reach level 25, and the Sandile will give me less experience. So I want to knock out the Sandile first. This is the fight where Dragon Rage is really useful, so I'm going to be spamming Dragon Rage on everything, because first of all, I got an attack drop from the Sandile's Intimidate, so that lowers my attack. And secondly, my attacks are not very useful, especially against, like, say, the Sandile, which is a Dark-type Pokemon. Really Crunch, or I don't have Crunch yet, but Bite doesn't do too much damage. So Dragon Rage is just great, because it 2-hits almost everything in this battle. The first Pokemon that my ally has, the Patello, can knock out the Sandile with one of its Grass-type moves, which helps a lot. In this case, it got knocked out pretty quickly. Ponyta is a little bit more useful because it has moves that deal more damage. But really, this fight can go one of many different ways. The idea here is that I knock out Ghoul Bat second, because that way I don't knock out this Bouffalant, which is probably the ace of this fight. It's very difficult to knock out. And I reach the same level as the Ghoul Bat, and so the Ghoul Bat would end up giving me less experience. So I'm fighting these pokes in a very specific order. Again, the Skorupi, I'm knocking it out first over this Bouffalant for that very same reason. That was an accident. I didn't mean to use Dragon Rage there on the Bouffalant, but I will be targeting the Skorupi first. Pretty much the Bouffalant is the hardest thing to knock out. It has a lot of really bad moves. It has Throat Chop, which is I don't know what its power is, but it's pretty strong. It's got the same type attack bonus with Bouffalant. It also has Return, which is a pretty strong normal type move, and it also has Mega Horn and Revenge, I believe. So not a great move set to deal with. At this point, as you can tell, I haven't taken any damage from the opponents at all, which is really, really good. And I'm actually going to knock out this Skarmory pretty cleanly. I think that's exactly 40 damage I did there the last turn to knock it out in one hit. So I came out of that battle at a pretty good full health, which is really, really good. In that battle, I also learned Crunch, which is a very strong Dark-type move. And Crunch has the likelihood of lowering defense by one stage, and so that means that with my ability Sheer Force, Crunch gets a boost, and Crunch is about 100 power in this game, with Druddigan, of course, with the specific Druddigan. The other Druddigans can have Rough Skin, which doesn't get that Sheer Force ability. So this is why this Druddigan is so good, because it has that specific ability. It also has decent enough stats. Now here I could go take the center if I had taken a lot of damage, but because I didn't take any damage, I don't need to, so this is great. I'm actually going to go shopping. I'm going to buy some lemonades. Lemonades are really cheap potion-like items that heal 80 HP, which are really, really helpful, because I'm not really going to have too much health to warrant getting any more bigger potions. I am going to be buying a few hyper potions later on, but the lemonades are really useful for healing some damage. I actually go shopping at the mart separately to buy a few other items that I can't buy at the drink stand. I'm going to sell the star piece. I'm going to buy some full heals, some super repels, and some fluffy tails. So fluffy tail is pretty much like a Poké Doll. It allows us to flee from any wild encounter, and this is actually very, very useful. I bought 2 of them. I'm going to be using both. They're very, very useful. Pretty much only one of them is mandatory, but getting the second one is a nice nice thing to have as well. I forgot to also mention in the previous double battle, if you end up knocking out an opponent Pokemon and you are the only Pokemon on the playing field, i.e. your ally doesn't have a Pokemon out, it recently got knocked out, you will get all the experience in that battle. So you share experience with your ally in the double battle. And if I had not shared experience on one poke in that fight, I would have hit level 27 earlier. And at level 27, Druddigan learns its staple move, which is Dragon Claw, which is a 80 power move, but since it's the same type as Druddigan, it gets the same type attack bonus, and it ends up being 120 power. So a very, very strong move. And if that was the case, I would have had Dragon Claw for this second Tyrogue, and I would have been able to knock it out with Dragon Claw in one hit. Instead, I have to use Slash twice. If Slash criticals, I believe this one is a range. The first Tyrogue that I fought is guaranteed with a critical. Yeah, so it's a 69% range with critical on the second Tyrogue at level 26. And there I learned Dragon Rage or Dragon Claw, and I teach it over Dragon Rage because Dragon Rage is not very useful anymore because most things have a lot of HP, so Dragon Rage is just slow to use. And here I'm going to use a Repel and head off to this next fight here. So far I've only fought like maybe two optional trainers. I don't think I fight any more optional trainers from here on out. So this ends up being pretty clean in terms of the amount of fights that we're fighting. We're not fighting anything that's not necessary. So this guy obviously is mandatory. This Cubchoo is a little bit annoying. It has Endure, and it also has Play Nice, which lowers my attack. And so obviously I set up a Hone Claws to start so that I could one-hit the Cubchoo. So if it does use Play Nice, the Cubchoo ends up being a 2-hit, and the Zebstrika here ends up being a 3-hit, potentially. The Zebstrika is also possible that he can paralyze you with Spark, and I really don't want to see that. Luckily, that didn't happen there. And we're just going to make our way through this next area. There's a few trainers here. We just run around past them. This girl here is actually not a spinner. I don't know why I took my time with her. And this girl here, I actually go up this way to pass her, and that was probably not the correct path. I could have gone around through the grass on the right side there and passed her pretty cleanly without having to pause. So that was a little bit of a time loss there. This guy is a spinner as well, so I'm going to do a bag manipulation on him and head off into the next town. So a lot of those trainers actually with the old route, with the other main, which we actually used to run the Whalmer and use it all the way through the entire run, we'd have to fight a lot of those optional trainers with the Whalmer because Whalmer is not very strong. It doesn't get a move like Hone Claws to boost its attack or special attack, so it's much, much slower. All right, Pista Village. There's quite a few tough fights here. Most of the fights for the rest of the run are extremely difficult, so I'm going to be... I don't actually save here because this is a PB attempt, but for a marathon type attempt, I would save for a lot of these fights. So here I'm going to, if I haven't already, I'm going to heal. I'm going to do that now, actually. And this first fight is pretty dicey. One interesting thing here is you can see there's trainers on the left side of the gym. If you walk to the right side of the gym, the left side trainers will not see you when you pass the right side trainers after fighting them. But if you go do the left side of the gym first, you end up once you defeat the left side trainers, the right side trainers have longer vision, so they can see you from the right side. So it's obviously makes sense to fight the left side first, or right side first rather. This fight is kind of gross. So the Meditite there, you can see it missed high jump kick, so it dealt a lot of recoil damage to itself. And that ended up being nice because I could save a Dragon Claw, because I had to set up a Hone Claws on it anyway, and so I ended up just finishing it off with Slash. So Slash is really useful there to save a Dragon Claw PP, and that ended up being useful for the next fight. That Hitmonlee also outspeeds you and knows high jump kick, and it does a lot of damage, and a critical actually probably would have knocked me out from there. Luckily it did not critical, so that ended up working out well. And also that Hitmonlee is a range. It's a 13 and 16 range to knock out in one hit with Dragon Claw after a Hone Claws. Luckily, that fight went really well, and so I end up healing to full for this next fight because this Bulldor has Iron Defense. I have to set up one Hone Claws on it and then use 2 Dragon Claws. Unfortunately, it uses Rock Slide turn 1, which a critical does a lot of damage, and it used Iron Defense turn 2, which means I have to use 2 more moves to knock it out. But because I saved a Dragon Claw, it's pretty safe to use Dragon Claw again to knock it out in a 3rd hit here. So I end up knocking out the Bulldor pretty cleanly. The Bulldor also has Mud Slap, which can lower my accuracy, so it's very good I didn't see that as well. Next up is a Whisk Cache. This Whisk Cache has Magnitude, which deals variable damage depending on which Magnitude level it rolls. So Magnitude 10 does about half my health, and with a critical, it does quite a lot of damage. There, as you can see, a critical Magnitude 9 did a lot of damage, so that was obviously pretty scary. And I used 2 Dragon Claws on Whisk Cache here to knock it out in one hit. And as you can tell, I'm still lower level than all these opponent Pokemon, so I'm actually gaining twice as much experience here. So I got about 3,000 experience from that Whisk Cache as an example. But so far, these fights are going really, really well. So I'm going to heal the full for the sort of the leader of the gym, the dojo, Sanchez. This guy has a pretty nasty team of pokes. So for race, marathon type attempts, I would definitely be saving for him. So he leads a Hitmonchan. This Hitmonchan has the 3 elemental punches, and the elemental punches can obviously status you, which can be very, very scary. And so Ice Punch there obviously does a lot of damage. I have to set up 1 Hone Claws and then use 2 Dragon Claws to knock out the Hitmonchan. One thing I also forgot to mention is there's an interesting mechanic in this hack where you can only use 4 items per battle, which can get kind of scary, especially if you get statused a lot by this Hitmonchan. So you're only limited to using 4 potions or full heals, that kind of thing in battle. So you really, really do not want to be using too many of those there. This Hitmonlee, actually here it could have knocked me out with high jump kick, but it went for Mega Kick, and Mega Kick non-critical does not kill, so I opted to not heal there and save my healing item for this Hitmontop instead. That Hitmonlee is guaranteed to knock out with Dragon Claw, however it is always faster than you. And this Hitmontop unfortunately has Intimidate, so now I have 0 in terms of my boosts for attack, so I have to use Hone Claws a couple times here in order to knock it and the next Pokemon out. Ideally, I'm going to set up. I need to be at +2 to +3 to knock it out with Dragon Claw. However, if it uses Close Combat there, which lowers its defense, that allows me to knock it out using only 2 Dragon Claws because it got a defense drop. So Dragon Claw does enough damage there to knock it out in one hit. And obviously Close Combat, if it uses that enough times, it can do a lot of damage. Here I get a lot more experience because I was a lower level than that Hitmontop, so now I'm level 35, so pretty high level now. And I can knock out this Breloom in one hit. Unfortunately, it is faster than you, and it likes to use things like Stun Spore or Force Palm. Force Palm is a move that can paralyze, so luckily it didn't get fully paralyzed there, and it was able to finish off the fight pretty cleanly. So as you can see, I saved a lot of time because in previous runs of this, I had fought a couple additional optional trainers. So just as sort of a reference, if I had fought a couple optional trainers on the previous road, I would have been a higher level going into this fight with Sanchez, but I would have ended up at the same level at the end because I would have gotten less experience in that Sanchez battle because I was a higher level, and so I would not have gotten that bonus from being a lower level than his pokes. So it is riskier to skip optionals, but it is much, much faster if everything works out cleanly. Here I'm actually going to go take the center. I just don't have enough elixirs, that kind of item, to actually heal off my power points, so I'm actually going to opt to take the center there. And I'm going to go for one final shopping trip, and I'm going to buy max hyper potions here, because hyper potions are good for healing a lot of HP, and lemonades are useful, but there are certain situations where I may need to heal more than 80 health, and so a hyper potion is really helpful as well. So kind of a couple funny things of this hack. In that town, there was a bike shop. We can't actually get a bike, and even if we could, it wouldn't save too much time because there's not much left of the run. There's only a few fights left. And this fellow here, our buddy Malimo, he gives us Fly. And Fly is not useful at all because we're only moving forwards. We're not going backtracking at all. So it's not very useful to have. We also don't have anything to learn it, so it's not great. It's not useful for the speed run. But yeah, we only have about 4 fights left. Yes, 4 fights. So run is getting quite close to completion. Obviously, there's quite a bit of time left in the run because there's a lot of mashing cutscenes, and the fights that are coming up are fairly long as well. So that's why we're only about 30 minutes in, and there's only 4 fights left. All right, this trainer is mandatory, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be fighting her, and she is quite irritating. So she leads an Arbok. The Arbok has Intimidate, so it lowers my attack. It also has a terrible moveset. It has Acid Spray, which lowers my special defense, which means that each successive time it uses Acid Spray, it will do more damage. It also has the combination Stockpile, Spit Up, and Swallow. So Stockpile effectively pretty much gives like a counter of 1, so Stockpile 1, Stockpile 2, and if it were to use, say, Spit Up, that pretty much would deal a certain amount of damage depending on what that counter is. So Stockpile 1 Spit Up will do less damage than a Stockpile 2 Spit Up. And it's also a special attack, which means that if it's lowered my special defense with Acid Spray, Spit Up can do a lot of damage. As you can see, also it raises its defense when it uses Spit Up or when it uses Stockpile, and that means that I would do less damage to it. Luckily, when it uses Spit Up, it loses that defense boost, and so I do more damage than if the Stockpile hadn't been used up. And so that fight can get kind of gross. So you want to set up 2 to 3 times as much as if possible. But it's even at 2 times, it's very slim range to knock it out there. The other pokes are pretty easy to knock out. The Substrika is faster than you, and it can paralyze you, I believe, but it's not terribly scary, so we don't worry too much about that. The Arbok is the main issue. All right, coming up here is a series of pretty tricky fights, which can deal a lot of damage. So this is an area which definitely I would save for if I was doing a marathon run. So I'm going to heal to full. I'm also going to teach Protect. This fight coming up, the first of these 2 fights is where we need Protect. And it's actually 2 back-to-back fights. We can't heal in between those fights as well. So we have to make sure that we're fully healed going in and fully healed going out of the battle. So I'm actually going to take advantage of some interesting mechanics of one of the Pokemon that we're going to be fighting here to actually be able to heal to full before the next fight. So this guy, Malimo, he leads a Grumpig. This Grumpig has pretty much will only use Psyshock or Calm Mind on you. And Psyshock does a decent amount of damage, although it's not too scary. If it crits twice, it knocks you out, but if it crits once, you're pretty safe. And so I'm going to knock it out with Crunch after 1 Hone Claws. Can't knock it out without using Hone Claws. Next up is Slacking, and Slacking is a very powerful Pokemon with really high attack. But its ability is Truant, which means that every other turn it will not be able to do anything. So I'm going to take advantage, and I'm going to use Protect on the turns that it does not use Truant, and I'm going to attack it or heal or set up on the turns that it is using the Truant is active. So as you can see, at turn 1 on the Slacking, I use Protect, and that actually is guaranteed to make Malimo switch out. So it switches out to the Heatmore. I set up a second Hone Claws, and then I use Dragon Claw to knock out the Heatmore. Turn 1 on Slacking, when it comes back into the battle, I use Protect to stop it from attacking me. And then on the Truant turn, I use Dragon Claw. Then I use Protect again to stop it attacking me. Then I set up again, so I'm now at +3. And then on the Truant turn, I use Protect once again. And then I Protect again, heal on his Truant turn to get to full health. And then after another Protect stall on the non-Truant turn, I can knock him out with Dragon Claw. So he's a 2-shot with Dragon Claw there. And so it's very good to be full health exiting that battle, because the poke leading the next fight is extremely scary. So this guy leads a Hitmon Top, and Hitmon Top has Triple Kick. And Triple Kick is actually programmed kind of weirdly in this game. It actually does way more damage than it should, based on damage calculations. Luckily, the Hitmon Top likes to use Detect, so I'd like to get 2 Hone Claws off here. So if he uses Detect twice, I'm pretty much guaranteed to win, unless he criticals a lot with Triple Kick. So the idea here is I actually end up setting up twice with Hone Claws, knocking him out with Dragon Claw. Didn't see any Triple Kicks, which is really good, because ideally you want to go into this next fight at next poke with full health. So this Durant is faster than you, and it likes to use Dig, so it used Dig turn 1. It likes to use Dig if you're fully healed, actually. If you're lower health, it likes to go for other moves instead. And so here I'm going to opt to go for 2 crunches to knock it out. This Durant has the ability Hustle, which means that its moves are less accurate. So it actually missed the Dig, which is really good. But it hit the crunch, which isn't terrible, but it ended up being a little bit of a detriment on this guy, because I have to 2-hit this Crustle, and it has the Rocky Helmet, which means that it's an item that it can equip, which when you hit it with a contact move, it will deal 20 damage. And as you can see, I had 18 health after he hit me, which means that if I had attacked him, I would have died. I would have won the fight, but I would have died, and I need this experience from the Crustle. So I had to heal before the Crustle was defeated. So those 2 fights are extremely irritating to deal with in their own ways. The first one is pretty safe because Protect is pretty consistent, but the second fight, the Durant especially, and the Hitmon Top can do a lot of damage. So we don't really want to be dealing with that. All right, so we're at our final destination. We're at Wing Peak, and we see that little vision of that little boy again. And now there's 2 forced wild battles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to opt to, in this run, I actually use the Fluffy Tail to run from this Heatmore. This Heatmore is about 50-50 to be able to run away from it, because it has random stats. After some calculations, I've realized that the Heatmore is much more better to fight, because I'm actually going to be fighting the next poke that I see. There's another forced wild encounter coming up, which is a Ghoul Bat. And the Ghoul Bat is actually always faster than you, and it has the ability, or it has the move Poison Fang, which can poison you. And it is also less likely, I think it's actually the Ghoul Bat is slightly more likely to knock out in 1 hit with a critical hit. But because the chances of running from the Heatmore or moving before the Heatmore, being faster than it, are higher, I'm going to opt in future runs to knock out the Heatmore instead of the Ghoul Bat, and use the Fluffy Tail on the Ghoul Bat instead. Because as you can see, I got poisoned here at the end of this Ghoul Bat, and so I had to heal that off, and that took a little bit of time. But knocking out that Ghoul Bat actually brings me up to level 40, which is extremely helpful for the next battle. Because if I'm level 39, I have less health, and my stats get a special boost because level 40, due to damage calculations, if your level ends in a 0, you get more of a boost from that level than previous levels. So I actually get more of an improvement in stats going from 39 to 40 than say I would from 38 to 39. So going up to level 40 there is really good. I'm actually going to was a little bit confused as to what I'm doing here, but I do want to heal the full for this fight, and I also want to be stopping on the tile that's 2 tiles ahead of where I am right now. Because I swapped Whalmer to the top and save because the next fight is pretty scary, and this run I actually had a pretty good lead on my PB, so I opted to save because a quick death would have meant I could still PB. But unfortunately on this tile, which is the tile I should have saved on, I got an encounter from this Durant. And this Durant, luckily, it had Hustle, which meant that its dig missed, and Whalmer didn't die. Whalmer needs to be alive, so I need to have Whalmer leading this next fight for a couple of reasons. Well, for one main reason in particular. As you can tell, I also equipped the Dragon Fang before that fight as well to boost my Dragon type moves. It's very important for this fight as well. So this Crocodile, which is his lead, has Intimidate. I do not want to have my attack lowered, so I bring in Whalmer to sacrifice so that Dredigan does not suffer the Intimidate. This Crocodile is faster than you, and it has moves that can knock you out in 2 hits if you're level 39, whereas if you're level 40, you have enough defense that you just tank 2 Earthquakes here. It also has Crunch. If Crunch lowers your defense, the run is pretty much dead because you're taking a lot of physical damage in this fight, and if your defense is lowered, it ends up being just a nasty, nasty fight to deal with. So I usually opt to reset the fight if I get the defense drop. But there I didn't, so that's good. And luckily I take enough damage that this Dredigan will always go for Sucker Punch. So I actually get a free turn to heal there, which is very, very helpful because this next poke, Bouffalant, is extremely scary. It has a very high attack stat. So that free heal is really helpful here. I really want to see this Bouffalant use Revenge, which does less damage. It also has Mega Horn and Head Smash. Head Smash is good because it deals recoil damage to itself, which can help knock it out. But here, I generally want to be setting up to +2 or 3. Ideally 3. And so if he uses Head Smash twice, he takes 2 lots of recoil damage. I can knock him out at +2 with Crunch. If he uses Head Smash once, I can knock him out at +2 with Dragon Claw. But if he never uses Head Smash, I have to go to +3 to knock him out. And going to +3 is really good. I do need to be at +4 for this fight overall, so getting that extra chance to set up is really good. This Drifblim is always faster than you. If you are at +1, which is extremely unlikely, but if you are at ends up being at +2 and he uses Strength Sap, which lowers your attack, he ends up being a range, so you don't really want to deal with that. Also, getting your attack lowered from the Drifblim is bad because you want to set up quite a few times on the Skarmory, and the Skarmory has Steel Wing, which can raise its defense, and that can make him very slow to kill. And Skarmory also has got a Rocky Helmet on, which deals damage if I hit it with attacks. So I do want to be very careful about my HP here. Here I got a little bit unlucky because I ended up, I think I did the wrong attacks here, so I ended up getting a heal on the Skarmory. But here I want to set up to ideally +3 or +4, and that's for the next fight, the next poke in this fight as well, because it will always use Bulk Up, which is a move that boosts its attack and defense. And so if I'm at +3 for the next poke and it uses Bulk Up, it is only about 5 and 16 to knock out at with that attack at +3 and the Bulk Up. But if you go to +4, he will use Bulk Up and you are guaranteed to knock him out in 1 hit. Here he actually went for Rock Slide, which is normally good. However, it flinched me because he's faster. And then he used Bulk Up after that. So that ended up being an extremely slow fight. Still saved time overall, but that fight ended up not being very good. So that ended up working out quite nicely. And that's actually the last fight of the run in terms of mandatory fights. So I know based on my time here that I've just beaten my PB by quite a sizable margin, which is really, really good. What else did I miss talking about on that fight? Yeah, I guess on that fight, again, I mentioned that you can only use 4 items per battle, and so if you end up taking a lot of damage, getting criticaled a lot, you could get kind of screwed over by not having enough, not being able to use any more healing items. But yeah, that pretty much is that. There's a massive text mashing sequence here. It's about a minute and a half long that I have to go through. But our buddy we just defeated there, he's not really our buddy. He's actually our sort of the enemy. He ends up changing his ways and becoming a good guy in the end. So anyway, just a little bit of story to add on here. So I'm going to make my way through this area here. Pretty straightforward. You can get lost, but once you've done this enough, it's not too difficult to get through. And there's a few other items I could pick up here, but they're not useful because I'm not really doing any more fights. So that ends up working out quite nicely. But yes, the run isn't over. So we haven't quite gotten to the end yet. We haven't achieved the goal of what we're setting out to do, which is to figure out what's going on at the top of Wing Peak. And so we're going to make our way up into this next area where we meet all our friends. And there is a cave coming up here, which we're going to enter. And so this is where we kind of have to go through the last sort of sequence of the run. And the last, it's technically a fight, but we actually don't have to do any fighting in this fight because of one of the items that we have. If you remember what that is. And so we actually hear there's a voice, someone needs help inside this cave. And so we're going to make our way in here into this cave and see what's going on. And there's that little boy. So he was actually trapped in here. And so what happened is there was there's a genie in here that has trapped this little boy, and we were able to get, me and my buddy here are able to get him out, but unfortunately now there are rocks that are in front of the entrance and we can't escape. So and this and our buddy can't help us with his Pokemon break those rocks, so we're actually forced into another fight here against this genie. And so this this genie coming up, this is the only fake mon in this run. So this is actually a custom Pokemon that was added into this hack. It is a fairy ghost type, I believe. And it has the move Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam is super effective on Druddigon, and it actually knocks out Druddigon in one hit. Luckily, we have a Fluffy Tail. And since this is a wild battle, we can just get away from the genie. We don't have to fight it at all. So that's a nice little skip that I discovered is very good for the speedrun. With the Wailmer, we could actually beat that genie, but you have to use quite a bit of cheese, and it's not a fun fight. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Nice anticlimactic ending. So we have kind of a large 4+ minutes of gameplay after the last fight that you actually have to fight, but after that it's just execution and tech smashing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As you can tell, I beat my PB here by quite a substantial margin. In terms of time save moving forward here, I think most of the time save comes from the Druddigon catch. Getting it in a Yola ball, not having to weaken it would save time. Catching it to first ball would save time. Getting a slightly faster fight against the Roggenrollas early on would have saved time as well. Obviously, that's RNG. I can't really do anything about that. And the NAS2 fight, the last fight that I had, last trainer battle that I had, that fight went really, really slowly as well. So there's a little bit of time save available there. But this is a very, very clean run. I'm pretty happy with how this went. This could probably go sub 47 with perfect luck. Not sure if I'll grind for that, but I'm very, very pleased with how this went so far. So yeah. We'll just sit here and wait for the Hall of Fame. That's pretty much Pocket Gaiden 2. So highly recommend playing this, even casually. It's a fun hack. The speedrun is a little bit dicey. The Druddigon Manip is kind of gross because it's a one-frame trick and you have to do perfect movement beforehand. But once you get the Druddigon, it cleans house pretty easily. It absolutely destroys everything in this run. So yeah, that's pretty much Pocket Gaiden 2. Hope that was an interesting commentary. And let me know if you have any questions about the run. I'd be more than happy to share. And again, thanks to Ocean Mantagear for creating this hack. It was a lot of fun. And he also created Pocket Gaiden 1, which is a very good short ROM hack as well. So yeah, it's starting to play something else here. We're just going to pause that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.